Hey there, today I'm going to be going over a Codewars problem. This is a 6Q level difficulty, so let's just jump right into it. Here are the instructions. Enough is enough. Alice and Bob were on a holiday. Both of them took many pictures of the places they've been, and now they want to show Charlie their entire collection. However, Charlie doesn't like these sessions, since the motif usually repeats. He isn't fond of seeing the Eiffel Tower 40 times. He tells them that he will only sit for the session if they show them the same motif at most n times. Luckily, Alice and Bob are able to encode the motif as a number. Can you help them remove numbers such that their list contains each number only up to n times without changing the order? Okay. And so this portion, I'm not going to read out all the numbers, but what I will say, just as an alternative to this explanation, the gist of it is we're being given an input. We're being given an input array and a input number. And we want to check these numbers inside the array to see if they occur up to n times, right? And if a number occurs more than n times, we want to ensure that that number is not included inside of the new array. So we want to maintain the original order of the array while ensuring that each number doesn't occur more than n times. And if you want, you can pause the video and sort of just go over this real quick, but I will be explaining it in much more detail when we actually get to the coding portion. So let's just do that. So here we have two inputs, an array and a number, and our output needs to be a new array. So typically in these situations, I just simply like to create a results array because we know that our output is going to be an array. And whenever I'm dealing with a problem that involves counting how many times an element occurs within an array, it's typically a good idea to use a dictionary or a map for that situation. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to call this dictionary, we're going to call it photo count. That sounds good. And this will be equal to just a new map. And now I can already tell that a for loop is going to be a good idea for this problem because we want to go and check, we want to be going through each element to see how many times it occurs, one by one. So that's what we'll do. So let's just create the for loop here. And use I equals 0. And then I is less than array.length. It's just a typical JavaScript for loop. And now that we've started our for loop, the first thing that I like to do, just to make it a little bit more readable, so I'm going to just create a variable called num that's going to be equal to array index I. So we'll say num equal to, so this is just simply equal to the value of I, or our currently selected element. And now, the next goal is to populate our dictionary to make use of it. So we want to be checking immediately if our current number is inside of our dictionary and how many times that number occurs. So we can start off with an if statement. That would be perfect. And we can say if we could say photo count, yes, photo count dot has num. So we're checking to see if num is located inside of our dictionary as a key. And if it is, what we can do, we can use the set method. We could say set num, and then for the value, it's going to be .get. I'll explain this in just a second. .get num. I like that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I am checking to see if num is inside of our photo count dictionary. And if it is, then we move on to this, which is saying, okay, if we find the number, we're going to use the set method here and setting num. So if there are no repeats in dictionary, so this will just simply go straight to setting the value since the key already exists, but you have to set something here in order for this method to work. But anyways, this is the important part, the value, which is just saying, okay, for the value of this key, we want to be going into the dictionary and using the get method, which retrieves a value from a key, and the key in this case is num, which is our currently selected number inside the input array. And whatever value that is, and since this is our first iteration of the loop, we know this value is going to be what? It's going to be 0. Or 1, sorry, since it's only occurred one time. I'm sorry, if it's our, let's say, using this array as an example, right? Let's say we're on this part. We know that 1 has occurred once. So we know that this value is going to be 1. And since this is our second time encountering 1, we want to be adding 1 to it because we've seen it twice. So that's why we add 1 here. We have the +1 here. So I like that part. So what if we are going through a for loop and we can't find num inside of our dictionary? Well, that's where the else statement comes into play. And we can say, okay, so if we can't find the number, we want to use .set once again and store num as a key. And since we're counting these numbers, we start at what? We start at 1, right? And so this is going to account for both finding num and not finding it, and not being able to find it. And so now we have successfully populated our dictionary here. Now what we want to do is we want to check and see if our currently selected number inside the input array, if it occurs less than or equal to n. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that whatever number we're on doesn't exceed n. That's basically why. So we'll make a new if statement here inside the for loop still. We'll say if photo count dot get num is less than or equal to n. So we know that whatever value this is going to be a number, right? And let's use this array as an example. So we've encountered 1 twice, so this value would be 2, which means that 2 is less than n in this case, which is 3. So if it is, great. Then we can continuously populate our results array if that number occurs less than n times. So we can say results.push n num, I'm sorry. And so I'll just try to see if I can explain that a little bit better. So okay, let's see. So let's say we're on the first, using this array as an example, right? We're on the first iteration of the for loop, right? Starting at 1 here. So we couldn't find 1 inside of our dictionary. So we went to this else statement to set our key value. And the key is num, which is 1 right now. And since it's the first time we've encountered this number, we start at 1. And we move on to this snippet right here. And if photo count.get num, so we know that this is going to be the value of a key. And in this case, the value of our 1 key is 1. And 1, is it less than or equal to n, which is 3? Yes, 1 is less than 3. So that means that we push that number, which is 1, into our results array. So this would just be an array with the number 1 in it. And since it's our first iteration of the loop, but this process will continue and it will retain the same order, which is what we want. So this should work. Let's just see. Return result. Great. Let's attempt it to make sure. Awesome. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed my explanation. Hopefully you learned something from it. And yep, thanks for watching.